Welcome to Zen and the Art of Real Estate Investing. What if you could learn from experienced real estate investors, find out what got them to where they are now, get insight into their daily habits, and take these insights to inspire your own growth? Each week, Jonathan Green shares an in-depth look at the mindful approach to real estate investing. Jonathan is a lifelong real estate investor, advisor, and coach, as well as the founder and team leader of Streamlined Properties. Whether you're looking to start from scratch, get to the next level, or just for a straightforward and honest approach to real estate investing, Jonathan seeks to provide a free mentorship program you can take with you anywhere. Now, here's Jonathan.
Welcome back to another episode of Zen and the Art of Real Estate Investing, and this is a milestone, episode 250. My guest is Katie Kim, and she, like me, grew up with real estate around the dinner table and in all of her free time. You're going to hear all about how she became the developer's developer and how she can teach you how to do it as well. Let's go. This is episode 250 of Zen and the Art of Real Estate Investing with my guest, Katie Kim. Katie is a real estate developer, investor, and educator with a passion for empowering business owners and aspiring developers to succeed in commercial and mixed-use projects. Katie, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I'm excited to talk to you because I know you grew up in a real estate household. So what was it like growing up with a family of multi-generational developers?
Well, when you're born and bred into it, you're, the family bonding time is kind of like fix and flip, or
This sounds so familiar to me.
I like to say like I was a victim of child labor law. My parents don't like that one, but when everybody is going and having fun, you're sitting there building walls or doing something, lots of open houses. But the fun part was actually learning how to negotiate at a young age, because I was sitting in the back of council meetings and stuff like that. Kind of backfired on my parents a little bit later in life, but
right. You could do whatever you want when you're 14. You're just too smart and you knew all the tricks. I like it. Yeah, I understand that though, because I did the same. Like my dad's thing was yard sales. So we would go to yard sales and he would make an offer on every house at the yard sale. And so I also saw him negotiating, not just at yard sales over like a 25-cent football, but over the house. And I think it helped me. I became a lawyer after that. And it's like, negotiation's a big part, though, of what you do. And not just, I think, what people think, because you're in the development game. And a lot of that negotiation happens way before anything even is hitting ground or anything has happened. Am I right about that?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's one of the workshops I hold is a control versus commit workshop for that exact reason. It's a lot of people are afraid to take that first step, but if you could control the first step as you start to do the due diligence and stuff like that, it's not as scary. But if you're not in the game, it's hard to understand that.
Yeah. I mean, people always say, like, people like us who grew up with family in real estate, we have it easier. They don't know that we only were allowed to do that. Like that was our fun time, like you said. But how do you think new people can figure out, how to get ready, like how to get the confidence, especially when it comes to development or even getting off the ground to take that first step? Because I think that's where a lot of people claim they're stuck. I think it's more of a procrastination and fear. But what do you think?
I agree with you. I think it's a lot of that paralysis by analysis. We always make things overcomplicated. I think the easiest way to get started is to team up with somebody who's been there, done that, and has different scars than you. I'm big on different scars. I like to partner with people that bring a different perspective, because while we grew up in it, a lot of times I joke that my dad didn't let me use certain tools because he wanted to use it and I was the gopher, right? So it's kind of that same thing is when you're in it, you learn a certain aspect of it and then you start to grow into the opportunity and you learn different skills. But really teaming with somebody is, I think, the best way to do it, because they're going to guide you, they're going to mentor, they're going to think differently, especially when you need to pivot, because a lot of times in real estate deals, whether it's just an investment deal or development, you got to pivot at some point in the process. And if you don't have somebody that's collaborating with you and bringing ideas, then you're having somebody that's weighing you down and you're having to carry that whole load. So I think partnership is great, and getting in those rooms with people that have been there, done that, and not listening to the people in the room that have not.
Yeah. Oh, there's so many good points in there. One, I mean, the partnership, I like what you said that you need a differing point of view. You can't just have an echo chamber or you're never going to get anywhere. But also,
Mhm.
what you have to do to get through to the next level is also learning the playing field. And you can't do that when you haven't been there. And I think people often think, oh, well, I'll just go and ask someone for coffee. But to me, like, there's a 0% chance I'll ever have coffee with anyone that I don't know. I'm just like, I'm introvert. Just, it's not for me. But there
Mhm.
is a way of starting to make connections and really trying to build human relationships that then lead to this. Oh, wait, this could be a partnership, right? But it does take a little bit of trust to get there.
Absolutely. Actually, one of the first times I wanted to step into development and do it a little bit different than my parents had. So my grandfather did it one way and my parents did another strategy and I was going for another strategy, right? So
Yeah.
even though we did the same thing, we all use different strategies because we're all at different points in our life. And that's where I go back, I call it the time, talent, and treasure triangle. So like at every point in your life, there's only so much time you have. There's only so much treasure and only so much talent that you have at that point. And so then you can leverage it and grow, of course, but you're at where you're at. And I remember talking to my attorney, who was also an investor. I mean, again, I
Mm.
don't want somebody helping me that's not in the game.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a good
So
point.
I said, can I buy an hour of your time? And he's like, why? And I go, I just want to buy an hour of your time. I want to pick your brain. I want to talk about every deal you've ever done. And he's like, okay. And we did it on a Friday afternoon. And he said, he goes, this was probably one of the most enjoyable sessions I've ever had with a client because he was talking about how to structure and how to this and how to that. And I realized it's kind of like you can color outside the lines as long as you're still on the same page.
Yeah. I
Like,
love it. I like that you offered to pay for the time though, and I think that's what some people like. To me, coffee. I don't drink coffee. I drink tea. It's just like it's kind of a time suck. Like I don't know
mm,
if the person's going to be interesting or if they're even prepared. But if you
mhm.
know you're going to pay someone whatever it is, a lawyer rate could be like $250 to $500 an hour. You're going to come prepared because you want to max that hour out. And then I think you're really in a win-win situation there. I think that's really helpful advice to anybody looking to connect with someone who's more of a stranger who you haven't built a relationship with yet.
Yeah. And like you said, there's a lot of times that they're not coming prepared. And that doesn't, then I know somebody's going to hear that and overthink, well, what do I need to prepare, and go like this. It's
Yeah.
like, calm down, slow down, right? And it's like, what do you want to do? Like, why do you want to get into real estate investing? Is it for appreciation? Is it for cash flow, right? Like, step into those decisions and then make sure you're asking somebody who's doing that strategy that you're doing or you
Yeah.
want to do and come with, questions and curiosity. A lot of times I find younger investors wanting to tell me how they can't do something, how this, and it's like that to me is an anchor versus an engine. It,
If you're
yeah.
23 and you can't do something, I'm not sure what's going on.
Oh
you
no.
know,
Can I tell you the time I thought I had before I had kids? And
yeah,
now I'm like, I could have ruled the world. I had no idea. I had
yeah,
no idea.
yeah,
But when you come with those questions of any investor, I mean, I literally went when I was trying a different strategy and I would ask every investor in my community to go, have coffee or walk or have a beer, something, and there's a lot of times I'm walking their daily walk with them and we're just
yeah,
talking questions and coming from like, how did you think that? Why did you do this? And understanding kind of, well, we wanted to, risk mitigate this or risk that. And they want to share their
yeah, oh yeah,
experiences,
yeah,
but you have to come from contribution, right? Like,
yeah. That
and yeah.
I was just thinking, just because you were saying like the coffee thing, and I've been joking about that, but then you started saying what you were asking. And I'm like, investors love to talk about themselves, but more they
Mm,
want to talk about their projects and how they got there. So if you're really interested, instead of trying to be the life of the party, you're going to end up with 2 free hours of just absolute gold mines. But as we're both saying, you need to show up prepared. And like, that doesn't mean you need to have a 20-page essay, on what REITs are before you get to the table. You just have to have identified like what your strategy is. And I've always said there's a big difference between asking someone, you get one question after a presentation. You don't go up and ask someone, hey, how do I become a real estate investor? Like ask
mhm.
them something like really, really detailed, and you'll get a much better answer. And I personally think, I don't know about you, I develop trust a lot quicker with that person who asks a really good question. I'm like, oh, I'll spend an hour with that person for free. That's a great question.
Absolutely. Because you know the process and you're more willing to connect them as well.
Yeah.
Like that's a big thing is your network is your net worth. And if you don't have the network, you need to get in the room where you can increase that because then those questions and that trust build. And when people know where you want to go and they trust you and they like you, they're more than likely to help you get there. And so I have this thing I call pollinated collisions where like you will interact and I'll learn something about you. You'll learn something about me. And we may, continue the conversation, but we also may have other people in our life that come in and say, oh, you gotta talk to Katie. You gotta talk to Jonathan. You gotta talk to Liz. It's like all those things because people who get the game.
Yeah. And I think that we also know just based on what you said, like if I'm not the best person to answer the question, I want to get you to somebody who's better than I am at that. I maybe have learned a lot of things, but if they want something specific about midterm rentals, I'm going to pivot them to someone else. I know what I know, but I'm not the best, in the game at that. And I think that's really important too. But you have to be respectful of that person you're referring them to's time. So it has to be a person that you've already vetted to say like, hey, I trust them. And when I'm sending that email, I'm like, no, they're solid. Don't worry. Because if someone sends me a rando and it goes awry, I'm not going to be thrilled.
Yeah. And, and when you point that out is sometimes you want to still be in that conversation, right? Because that's a good question where you're like, I want to listen in, guys. Yeah. So there's sometimes I'm like, go rule the world, ladies, like you're connected, go. Or there's like, I want to be a part of that coffee, let me know. And so it helps level up our game sometimes too.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like these types of discussions are so important just for anybody to hear because it's very hard to make connections now. The world's so digital. There's a loneliness epidemic and people are thinking that joining a mastermind, which is great. Masterminds are great. But if you're all online, it just changes when you meet investors in person. And like you said, you're like, hey, are you working on a flip? Can I just follow you for half a day? I won't say a word. I just want to see what's going on at the flip. If you allow me to ask some questions, I will. But like, if you've never been to a flip, going on site of a flip or a development project is just like absolute gold. You'll learn so much just by being quiet and being a wallflower.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And those are some of the best experiences because just walking the job site, I do a lot of mentors with high school girls and awesome. I will bring them onto our job sites. I'll have them come to meetings. Like I don't reschedule my day when I have those. I just tell people like, hey, they're going to be here. Are you good with it? And bring them into the conversation because they're asking questions that you don't even know you can ask. And I think that is like, to me, that's like the Christmas morning of development, if you will, and investing. It's like, oh, wait, I can ask for that? Yeah. You can also do this and that. And you start to structure things a lot different.
Yeah, and it makes it more accessible to get there at a younger age. Of course, we were being, dragged around to everything. But I remember, negotiating with tenants when I'm 15 and figuring out like how to get rent when they were behind in rent. And then, I would go back to school and someone try and teach me like history. I'm like, I don't care. Like I'm already in business, when I was a kid. And I think that kind of has led me to the way I do business. Was the same for you? You said you're, in the back of council meetings when you're, 10 years old. And like, oh, that's pretty good. You really develop this kind of entrepreneurial business sense that, unfortunately not everybody can get to at the time.
Mm-mm. No, and it's interesting you say that because even with my kids, we're a big hockey family. And so like there's been council meetings where, my kids are in the back because my husband's playing or another kid's playing or something. And you figure it out, right? I mean, all small business owners do. But, from those conversations have some great life discussions too, because my youngest wants to take over my business. My oldest wants to already start his real estate portfolio so he can, play hockey full time pretty much and support his habits, which I'm like, great. That's your life goal. Let's do this. Let's put the plan in place. And so, he's running projections, but having them sit in those council meetings where sometimes it's not a great conversation, right? Sometimes people are coming with pitchforks and you're just trying to say like, see, not everybody loves everything I do, right? Like not everybody understands everything I do. And having it then see it all the way to like the end is really, it's one of the best gifts, to be honest, to be on.
I mean, I would think it's just like watching a reality show now with council meetings and like widespread NIMBYism around the country. It's like you just can't even ask a single question without everybody just going berserk about something. Is this how you're spending most evenings during the week?
Yes. Well, yeah, I mean, and it's interesting. The one I remember the most that they had so many questions. It was a urban infill that we were doing. It was 2 blocks of existing, we call them bungalow homes that we were transitioning into townhomes to increase 3-bedroom, 2-bath home ownership in a area. And we were putting all the incentive money back into the deal, really.
Yeah.
And people thought we were doing Section 8 housing and there would be like eminent domain. And I'm sitting here blindsided, like, wait a second, that's not even this project.
We're building a highway. I mean, what is this? Yeah.
But it was somebody didn't understand what was happening and started rumors, right? So now I'm educating a whole room on what's eminent domain, what's the project, how it's not Section 8. But it's that, right? It's like sometimes people hear something, they don't understand it, and they just are 100 miles an hour down the road.
Yeah.
You got to bring them back. So
yeah, and I think it helps knowing somebody from the community and then pointing out like what the real goals are. You can't convince NIMBYs of anything these days. It's just a very, in my experience, like kind of a veiled attempt. They're just using something to, promote what they don't want in their town. I mean, that's the whole point behind it. But it must be difficult to go, but also rewarding when you explain it and someone's like, oh, okay. That wasn't what I thought. You're not going to try to take my home and, build a freeway through the middle of it. You're just trying to add to the community. But it's interesting that you can do something that is generally so good for a community and will uplift them, bring more opportunities, and you still have people against it and all the red tape that stands before you with a lot of towns.
Oh yeah. The one on that sticks out the most is our bakery project, where we had to create a TIF district and a business development district, and nobody understood what it was. So there's lots of education, but from that project, 2 years after construction completion, that town saw $15 million of construction projects where they really hadn't seen anything for the last 10 years. And then in 4 years, they saw $35 million. And but for those programs that we created, I'm not sure those projects would happen because they're in tougher areas. They're not in areas where you see this massive appreciation. So you have to have them in there.
Yeah, I mean, that's the most important thing, though. I mean, it's like that something needs to be a linchpin to generate something else going. And that's traditionally how you saw widespread gentrification. Like as I was younger, it wasn't the way that people think of it in a negative context. It was like, oh, wait, coffee shops are opening there and like a haircutting place. Okay. The next town over is starting to get cool. But as you keep going, people get more scared, like, oh, it's never going to turn around. And probably the same people who were so, objectionable at the beginning are now like, well, actually, this really worked out. Thanks so much. They probably don't say anything, but I'm sure they're thankful.
They never say anything on the other side. But it's part of it, right? And that, as being a youngest kid, you're always used to like, what about me? What about me? But when we are like, we do a developer for fee. So I always say we're the punching bag for our clients during that initial time.
Yeah.
And then we are the back seat. Not even driver. We're like in the third row back because our client should get all that praise for building the community and putting the investment in. And that's awesome, right? And we want that because we don't want when people don't understand their brand to get hurt.
Yeah.
And that's why a lot of times we are. But, it's seeking to understand. I mean, there's so many times. I mean, it's just where people just don't understand. And so then they create this amazing, like you said, ripple effect. And now everybody's on the bandwagon. And, now we're asking, council people are asking us to take campaign pictures. And it's like, oh, you mean since you voted against this project, now you want me to take a picture with you in the project?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, the tide turns pretty quickly.
Oh, it does.
So the developer for fee, is that you coming on and doing the kind of beginning work, entitlement and things, making sure that they have everything correct? And then, as you said, standing back and letting them do the thing and probably advising when they get clueless and forget that they don't know what they're doing.
Yep. We I actually launched it in 2015, similar to our beginning conversation of like, how do I get involved? And we would have, since I ran my family's construction company for about 10 years, we'd have people come in and be like, I need to expand my business, but I either have enough money to build my workforce or buy a building, right?
Yeah.
And so I kept thinking that shouldn't be the one or the other. We should be able to find something together. So we would do a lot of build lease with an option to buy. And then it was like, but why are we taking on that risk for some of these clients? Like,
Yeah.
let them take it on. Let's just pay as a consultant. And so that's where we launched that developer for fees. So we help them from beginning to end, or we plug and play with what they want to learn. So a lot of like new developers will come to us and have a project we'll help them on. They'll do some of the work. We'll do some of it. We'll guide them all the way through, like a mentorship, and really help them learn. And a lot of them have now created their own development companies, and they're going off and running. So, which is great. It's really
and is
great.
that anywhere outside of Texas? Anywhere you can do it? Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah. Yep. And then launching the Development Academy now, it takes it even another step further, and that's been really fun. It's one of my favorite hours of the week is we call them Developer Advantage, where we talk about projects and how to tweak them and, what to ask for. A lot of them. So
it must be exciting though to see what developers are like now, given you grew up in a development family and now you're like, wait, because I always say, like, at real estate meetups, people who've never been to them have no idea what real estate investors look like. They think everyone's, wearing an Armani suit and there's like ripped t-shirts and shorts and Crocs. And they're like, that's who's there. But then you go to new developers, and new developers also, like a lot of new modern farmers, like they don't look like you would expect. They're not, 72 trying to do a new project. They're people who really want to make change like you guys did.
Yeah. And especially in Austin, I mean, some of the most affluent people here are in flip-flops, shorts, and like a cutoff all the time.
Yeah.
Like, but that's what I grew up with. I'm sure you did as well. Like, hard work and success, it looks dirty sometimes, right?
Yeah.
There are some of the most affluent guys in the city I grew up in that, I mean, I've never seen them in a suit. But
my dad wore tennis shorts and a tank top 24/7. It didn't make any difference ever. And everyone's like, oh, cool. Like, that's the valet. It's like, nah, it's just my dad. He's coming from a job site. Like, we had bulldozers in our yard, all the weird stuff. They're like, why do you have that? I'm like, he just likes to do stuff. Just, leave him alone. Let him have his fun. It's fun.
Oh, yeah. I remember, I was starting to plow snow at like 14.
Yeah.
And so people are like, what? And I'm like, and I would go to breakfast with all the boys.
Yeah.
And afterwards, and you're sitting here, and it's just such great to be around the table, but all those guys very well off, and you wouldn't know it. So, they're not, like you said, they're not in the suits, they're not this, but that's where a lot of times, like, what you're talking about is getting in the room with people who have been there and done that.
Yeah.
That doesn't necessarily mean that they have the suit on, that they have this. And a lot of times I find the people that are the most reserved have the biggest bank account, have the biggest net worth, and they're just listening. They're listening to see how real you are and how truthful, and if they can trust you.
Yeah. Since you grew up in it, did you kind of not see that it was slanted all towards men, or did you realize, like, in the beginning, like, oh man, this is interesting. It's all dudes here, but you had a seat at the table probably from the time you were a kid because you were listening and a participant. Yeah.
It's interesting now. I would say in the last 5 years, it really has made me evaluate that, like, I was the only girl, but because I grew up with, again, family business. So I was going to work with my uncles and my dad. And it was, again, I didn't think of it because it was family.
Yeah.
And then I had a stint in college where I went and I was computer science degree, again, all guys.
Yeah.
I was just so used to it. And so when people are like, well, women, I'm like, I don't know. I just never thought about it because people were people. And that's how I was taught to treat people, whether you're on a job site or, a laborer, an operator.
Yeah.
They're all people, and you got to work together to do the project. So no matter what background you are, no matter what color you look, what gender you are, you're people. And let's figure out how to get this project done. So.
Yeah. And I've found that even as much, sexism and racism is out there in the real estate investing and just in the real estate world, once you can prove, like, you just talk and someone knows what you're talking about, that usually goes away because most people, obviously there's not, are pretty business focused. Because my project manager, she's done 35 flips in the last 6 years. But when they show up, they're like, oh, look, it's a little blonde girl. And then she talks and they're like, okay, sorry, ma'am, way more than we do. So I think that's important, that of course there was a slant. It's certainly getting much better and really interesting to see what's going on. But I've always seen, at least from my friends and people in my family, like, once you know what you're doing, people are pretty much ready to work with you because pros want to work with pros.
Oh, absolutely. Like our utility company lady calls me a bulldog in heels because I'll come from, and I have 3 outfits in my car at all times because I'll come from a meeting, I'll have high heels on, pop the trunk, throw my
Yeah.
boots on and
Right.
go.
Got to go
And
to
they're like,
site. Yeah.
what just happened here? I'm like, let's go. Let's go. And, but it's, I memorize my floor plans and knowing like, hey, that door's swinging the wrong way or this, or this trunk line isn't supposed to be here. You have to know your stuff to get that respect. And I think there's a lot of new developers or new investors that come in and they want to act like they know it, that fake it till you make it. And it's like, you will be eaten alive by people that are in the game or ignored, and just come from that curiosity, right? Come from, hey, I want to get into this. I'm doing this, because they'll help you along. But if you come in like you know everything, no.
Yeah, and just a reminder for everyone out there, the most experienced investors and developers, they're not on TikTok and Instagram, so you don't know who they are. I mean, because it's like, you could get one of these like newfangled people, and some of them are great, but some just like, hey, I have 100,000 followers on Instagram. Like, you're immediately like canceled. That person doesn't care. They don't even know what Instagram is. They think it's, like MySpace or something, because it's not important. They're busy actually developing projects instead of making videos about it. And again, nothing wrong with social media. I like it for the most part. But your old school developers really, as we've been talking the whole time, is Millionaire Next Door. Like, you don't know them. You've never heard of them. Their name doesn't ring through, but they've been doing it for years, and they see no reason to tell everyone what they're doing other than turning out a project.
Yeah. And it's hard when you're looking at like the vanity metrics, right? Yeah. And be like, okay, but then you absorb what they're putting out and you're like, okay, show me context, right? This is the same project you've shown for the last 2 years, right? Like, let's get on to the next one. And it's interesting, in launching the Academy, I was worried that I didn't have that big following online, because when I launched in 15, we didn't market it. The developer for fee service. It was purely by referral. And we were still busy.
That's better clients though. That's the difference between micro marketing and spray and pray. It's like, you could have blasted out on social, but then you're going to get a bunch of people who you really don't want to teach. That's what I've learned. I've never launched those things because every company will tell, oh no, you got to go big. I mean, I don't want to go big. That sounds terrible. That's just going to be a time suck instead of a pleasure. Like you said, your hour a week in this is an absolute pleasure because you've kind of curated the audience there.
Yeah. And I keep it small. I mean, because I still am developing myself. I feel like you have to be in the game to teach it. And my intention was never to have the Academy like hundreds of thousands of people, because I want that impact. To me, the impact is worth the time, and otherwise it's not. And we vet people. So we only invite so many people. And, I'd rather have that. Like you said, I want quality, not quantity, where a week ago, we were working with a new subdivision, a new neighborhood, and the city started putting all this stuff on the developer. I'm like, wait, no. Let's go one by one. And we were able to save like $510,000 in 45 minutes. By knowing how to object to some of those things and be like, no, that's not really valid. We want this instead. And that to me is the fun, that impact of being able to share the knowledge, empower them, and then, be off and running. But if you had to hold somebody's hand every step that didn't also want to take action, I couldn't do that.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, if the people aren't bought in, it's a bad use of your time, even if it's spread out time. It's like, it goes back to what we were saying in the beginning about who you want to spend that, coffee or tea with. It really has to be worth it, because time's finite. As you said, you're a parent, I'm a parent, my kids are adults now. And it's like, no, I still want to spend all the time I can with them. I don't want to waste 15 minutes with a stranger unless it's going to be valuable. And some people find that to be weird. And I'm like, because I don't answer my phone either. And they're sitting there answering their phone 24 hours a day. I'm like, what? Why are you answering your phone? It's all spam anyway. Like,
I was going to say, half of it's robocalls anymore.
Of course.
Like, I don't pick it up if I don't know you.
Yeah. How can you be productive in whatever you do if you're just available all the time? You know what I mean?
Yeah. When you say that, it reminds me. So I have Wednesday is my crank day. And so I don't take any meetings. I don't take phone calls. I only check my email between like an hour window. And I remember the first time I implemented it, my banker called me and he was so stressed out. He was like, how can you keep having, business by doing this? It's like, I can't shut off my phone for a day. I said, Todd, I got more done in that like
Yeah.
8 hours in air quotes, right? Like, then I did the whole last week. And he goes, what? And I said, I wasn't interrupted. I was focused. Because when you get into those numbers and those projections and performas, and you can't be interrupted.
Yeah.
Mine, I can't anyway, but like, so I got to get in that flow. And he goes, oh, and he saw my production increase and all that. And he goes, okay. And now he's like, I'm not going to call you on Wednesday. And he's almost like a bigger guardian of that time frame now,
Yeah.
because he knows it's impactful.
That's how you train other people, whether it is you put it in your, email signature, or you just tell people like, or you just, my message says, I don't answer the phone, text me. I'm not going to answer. I'm not going to look at the voicemail. I don't care. Like, I have better things to do. And that's just creating your own personal boundaries, which, as you're saying, can just help you be more productive. Hey, it's Jonathan. Just want to remind you that you can actually work with our guests. And the way to do it for this episode with Katie is go to katiekim.com and click on the button that says Start Building Your Development Strategy or Work with Me. Now, Katie knows everything about development, as you've already heard, and you're going to hear for the next back half of the episode. So when you're done, you may be excited to say, yep, this is something I want to get invested in and learn more about. And you can do it at katiekim.com. Let's get back to the show. I wanted to swing all the way back though. What was the first project that you did as an investor yourself? Did you start investing, or did you go right into development because you were primed to be a 14-year-old developer?
My first investment was when I was 16 years old. And it was a real estate play for my mom. So she assumed we took over, and then we split out, my sister and I split out the property to 3 different buyers. And so it was a very strategic tax play, but that was really my first investment deal. And I remember, asking my mom, like, okay, so this is my cut. And she looked at me, I'm like, this is my cut, right?
Yeah.
And like, so yes, it was. But then after that, my next deal that was just by myself was my first condo in Chicago when I moved there out of college. And then I just kept buying one a year, like one a year, because I was a big budget person. Like my dad always would say I have like the first dollar I ever made, because I would just save. And then I'd be like, hey, I need money to go out, Dad. And he's like, well, you worked all week. I'm like, yeah, that's savings. Like, that's savings.
Right. That's for me. Yeah.
That's for me. That's right. But so, having that is like when you graduate college, a lot of parents will say like, invest in the 401k and get the match and all that. But we don't talk about investing for, that quote diversity, right? Investing for putting away for real estate, and get your minor points of your budget, and then look at those major milestones you want to hit and start saving up towards them. And that's exactly what I did. I just put the money I didn't need out of it into another bank account to start looking at it. And then, it was pretty much every year it'd come up and be like, okay, let's look for deals. Yeah. And I say that with the caveat that I was always looking, but now it's like, now I can act, because you can't, I firmly believe you can't time the market. You have to be in it to know where are my KPIs, where are my triggers, to be able to then say, okay, it's engagement time.
Yeah, I completely agree. I've always said I never take a day off as an investor. It's like I'm off. I'm on time freedom anyway, but there's no day that I'm not looking at real estate. I look every single day, like 30 times. You're getting emails, you're getting, properties from friends, wholesale deals. It's just, you have to look at them all, because you never know when one's going to actually be good. A lot of them are terrible, but, just like looking at it, to me, looking at a house is just more research for me. Still, even now, after thousands of houses, looked at and walked in my life, don't you think even now with your experience, you could go into some kind of like oddball house and you're like, I've never seen this before. What were these people doing? I don't know, but it looks cool. Or weird, it's a never ending thing, real estate, where you can continually learn. And then, as you were saying before, you get into different rooms and then you just learn different things from different people.
Oh, 100%. Like, I call it doing the reps, because like I said, I have 2 boys that are in hockey. So everything's like a sport analogy to bring it home for them. But like, it's getting the reps. So my oldest son wants to go to prep school, and he's like, do you think I can buy like some real estate there? And so we started running the numbers. I mean, he started doing the reps, and
this kid wants to house hack in high school. I love it.
He wants to house hack in high school. Yeah.
This is amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. He wants to take his college savings too and invest it. We're looking at some bourbon investments for him,
Yeah.
actually. So he's doing the whole analysis and everything. But then I said, okay, now, like you just said, it was perfect what you just said, because that's the game, right? You look at it and you're like, okay, that's good. How do we make it better?
Yeah,
How do we make
right.
it
Or,
great, right?
yeah, well, I think like sometimes people think, oh, well, if I spend 6 months, trying to figure out if I can house hack and then realize I don't want to live in a basement unit, that's lost time. It's like, no, all of it helps. Every time you look
All
at
of
a
it helps.
property, it helps. Or every time you vet an alternative investment helps, because, you're going to
Mhm.
practice diversification, hopefully across the long term, to balance real estate against other things that you also find enjoyment. But did you, like,
Yeah.
I grew up, I just love houses and real estate. I don't know if I'm just a weirdo, if my dad was a weirdo, but growing up in it, I wasn't even bored at the yard sales. I was looking for baseball cards, but I was looking at the house like, oh, this one's cool. And then my dad would say, yeah, you can knock down this wall. And now that's what I do with my kids. It's like, hey, we're going
Yeah.
to knock this wall down. It's interesting. I don't know how, I mean, maybe people just never played The Sims, but it's fun.
Well, and you look like you go into a space like I do, because like that. So I went to a couple yard sales, but my dad was really big into auctions because he was going
yeah.
and getting those tools. I mean, like I have
We
this
did a
Coke
lot of
machine.
courthouse auctions, a lot. Yeah. So I've been in the dirt as well. Yeah.
Oh yeah. But it's listening to that conversation. So when I love a good urban infill project. Like I
Yeah.
love it, but I can do that. I can walk into the building and see, like I always love to show the before and after pictures of the bakery, because you walk in and my husband, who was the construction manager on that project, goes, okay, so when we tear this building down, do you want us to face it this way or this way? I'm like, what do you mean? This is beautiful. And he's like, honey, you're smoking crack. Like this building needs to be torn down. And so now he makes me say potentially beautiful, but
Yeah.
he now sees it. And he goes, I don't know how you can see going into a space. And I think it's like what you said, you've grown up with the reps of seeing it, right? Of going in and being like, here, here, here. And now, and I wanted to too, but I had to take a drafting class in high school so I can do my mom's blueprints.
Yeah.
And so I can know now, like if I look at a floor plan and be like, that's not going to cash flow, or that is going to cash flow.
Yeah.
And how to figure it. And then you see it, and it's all that, and it's the reps, right? It's going in and it's years of those experiences that bring it. It's not like you can just teach that and know and be an expert, but it is, yeah. I mean, I've poured so much concrete, like, and with different ways, and like, where you need to like beefing it up, and like in front of the dumpster, people always cheap there, don't cheap there.
Yeah.
But like, like different ways. It's the reps. And that's where, if you're a new person, teaming up with somebody who's a mentor is great. And like you said, you're constantly looking at things differently. You could look at the same deal, a couple things tweak, and now you're evaluating it in a whole different light because you have different factors into it.
Yeah. And I mean, everything we're talking about is active. So for me, people who don't have the time to be active and be obsessed, it's not good to be involved in active investments. Get into syndications or modified turnkey where you're safe and at least generally what's going to happen, because it's you can lose too much by not knowing and not getting the reps and just hoping that somebody does it. But that can go for partnerships too. Like, I've had some bad partnerships, but I think I was just too eager. I was like, oh, they're friends. They'll be fine. I was because I grew up with my dad, like partnering I had like partnered, my sister and I owned like, I don't know, 20, 30, 40 properties before we were 18 in trust. So I kind of felt like, oh, partnerships are no problem. And my dad had all these weird partnerships with his friends on random properties in different states. And if they didn't pay, he was just a nice guy, but he really would help people. And I think I thought it was going to be easier. So people who were friends, I was like, oh, wait, no, they're trying to steal money from me. Okay. Yeah. I mean, did you have any problems with that? Or you knew, like going in with your family, like you knew what was out there and had vetted the relationships in the area, because you kind of knew who was who?
So I have very, very similar. I'm sure we could have many conversations of partnerships, probably offline. But so I grew up watching. My grandfather brought in like 5 families to do like the industrial park, like the whole park.
Yeah.
So then when you have 5 different families, 5 different people, it got very greed, right? I mean, at some point you go in, and that's why I always tell people when they're going in to do like their joint venture structuring, I said, die 20 times and not have any money in these conversations. And somebody's screwing you over. They're like, well, we're all friends. We're all going to, everybody's happy at the beginning. But looking at some of those partnerships, like you said, that they just wanted to, steal money, or they just wanted to steal knowledge, or they really wanted you to do everything, even though they said they were going to. I mean, I've seen all of them. I've seen ones that work really well. My parents, when I was growing up, I remember we house hacked a lot with Wuzzy, who owned a plumbing company.
Mm-hmm.
And every Saturday and Sunday, we would be there and everybody would be working the same time. And like, yes, we would do stuff, but they had probably the best healthy relationship because it was all open book, open discussion. There's no pride of authorship on either one. And I love that because to me, there wasn't any stress. It was like, yes, not everything is going to go perfect, but as long as you communicate and you're open and you're honest and you have integrity, then just tell everybody what happened, work with your partners to start coming up with those, resolutions. Because again, maybe they know something or they've done something, but there's so many where you think it's going to go well and then it doesn't. So I've learned that to control the narrative up front a little bit better and to say like, I'm doing this, this is what you can expect. This is what, I expect from you, and have that set expectations a lot sooner. And then you got to do what you say you're going to do,
Yeah. And I also think it's structuring. When I looked at, after my dad passed away and we kind of looked at all these weird partnerships, he always had them structured where he had the asset and the people were part of the job. So the other people weren't bringing money to the table. So he owned the real estate, which was always important. It's why we ended up with all these weird properties. And the other person was more of a manager and then eventually would become a co-owner, and he would let them increase over time. And I think that's smart. And that's something that I didn't do. I was just very like, oh, look, they flip houses. Let's just, do this and it'll be fine. And even when you flip with friends on common, it's like, to me, the only partnership that I can really work with is 50-50 on everything. Cause it's just like, there's no way that it goes smooth if it's not, everyone putting in the same amount. And like you said, understanding, listen, when it comes to this, that's my decision. Like, let's all agree that if you want to be a silent partner, you're going to be silent.
Yeah.
Please be silent.
Please be silent.
Yeah.
Well, I always say it's like, you don't want a brain surgeon coming in and telling you how to build a wall or like what layout to do. And you don't want a carpenter to go in and do brain surgery, right? I mean, it's vice versa. So you kind of stick in that zone of genius or stick in your lane, if you will. And the 50-50 is great. Those are the ones that like, again, I have a great partner that I'm on multiple deals with, and, he doesn't freak out when something goes wrong. He digs in. And I tell him all the time, I said, that's invaluable in a partner. Right. So you don't freak out. Like, let's start solving the problem.
Yeah, because I mean, that's real estate, though. We talked about it a little in the beginning, as you were saying, when you're talking about pivoting at the beginning with development. It's like if you're not malleable and don't understand that this is going to go off the rails 16 times, especially in development, whole project's going to be shut down. Oh, wait, no, now someone on the council says they like it because they realize it's going to create more jobs. It's like there's always this ebb and flow, especially in development, of where you go. And if you freak out every time something bad happens, even small scale on one flip, you're never going to get through it. Never.
No. And that's perfectly put. I mean, you gotta have tenacity. You gotta have grit. You gotta be able to pivot quickly and easily and understand that like, this is projections. This is where we said we were going to go. And this is the guide map, if you will, on our journey. But like, it's going to go all over the place and you can't control it.
Yeah. As we get towards the end, we were talking a little about partnership, but I wanted to talk to you about capital because I know that's one of your expertise areas. I mean, how did you figure out how to get the capital in when it's not your own? I think that's, it's not really for brand new people to worry about. They shouldn't start trying to take other people's money. But once you get going and you want to do something bigger, where should people look to get that capital that they need and figure out what's a better partnership money-wise to bring to the table to make something happen?
That's a great question. I love capital stacks. A little bit of a nerd with the numbers there.
Yeah.
But, I think everybody starts with friends and family at the first, so you get going. I became, again, I have that nerd brain. I became a student of the game. So I went to a lot of syndication workshops. I hired mentors that were doing just syndication.
Yeah.
And looking at like, how do they put everything together? Like what's a Reg 506C or 506D? And what are like, again, the boundaries of what we can do to raise? And then looking at what can the project take and what does the project need. And a lot of times there's a lot of money that's left on the table that the project itself creates. And that's where I think economic incentives are really beneficial to projects that a lot of people either don't think about, they don't understand, so they don't engage in them.
Yeah.
And they can be leaving a substantial amount of money on the table. For example, with the bakery project, it was a $5.5 million deal. We had $1.6 million in government money that came to us that added no more debt onto the project.
Yeah.
So it's those types of stacks that you can put together, and the other part, when you're putting together a stack, are you going for that hard money lending and what's the cost of it, right?
Yeah.
Are you going for more of the financial and what's the cost of it? Are you bringing developers into the deal at, say, a lower interest rate, but maybe you're giving them double the depreciation allocation? So now they're getting more of a write-off, which is great. They're still getting money, but they're not getting much cash. So the stack itself is good, but it's also looking at that cash flow, because I think it happens more on development than investment performance is you look so much at like, how do I get the project built?
Right.
And then you don't look at cash flow. You don't look at reserve. You don't look at a risk mitigation, and that cost of capital can take you under, it can tackle you.
Yeah.
And we talk about even partnerships, how you structure partnerships is huge in that too, to set those expectations, to say, hey, we're going to have this reserve over here. So we're going to, put 50,000 in the reserve before we pay you out one penny.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the timing is the most important part, especially for development, especially if you're taking money from people who are not as experienced and they're thinking, oh, syndication, cool, I'll just get some money. Like, no, we haven't even built it. What are we paying you? There's no rents coming in, unless you're taking funds just, on a pref or into a regular fund. But I think that's, all part of the discussion. But I like the diagram of the capital stack and also talking about the economic incentives that are available, because I think if you're talking about infill or downtown redevelopment, you have to do it with the incentives, because that's how you get everybody on board too. The incentives are out there for a reason, just like the tax code's out there for regions, just sitting there, but you need experts to know you have to do it this way, and then you'll get X, and then that reduces, what you have to borrow.
Yeah, because those incentives, like you said, you have to do X. They want you to do X, so they're going to give you Y. Right. They want you to, build more housing, in a certain range. They're going to pay for your infrastructure, right? Get the road paid for. Like, why pay for your own road?
Yeah. And I mean, coming from somebody who's sat in on council meetings from the time they were a kid, the most important thing is understanding what the community actually really wants. And if you're a local developer, local investor, and you can deliver or be part of that discussion, like, you're going to be 20 steps ahead of someone who's trying to put in a car wash when they're like, no, we don't want that. We need housing, on this abandoned lot. And so you come with the housing, and that's just a much better option. But you can learn so much just from even reading notes online about council meetings. But going, you may get some, Jerry Springer moments, but you're also going to figure out, like, hey, what do they really want? And who's in control? Who's really in control of these small city councils?
Yeah. And that's a big one, because what we learned is you're either city manager heavy or you're mayor heavy. Like, you're either mayor ran or city manager ran. So who's running the show for real?
But never urban planning. Urban planning is never at the top of that chart, which is so funny when we look at all these weird things that towns do. It's like that falls behind. It's always funny to me.
Oh, yeah. Or when they say, like, the economic development said I could have this. It's like, that's great, but they don't have any voting rights usually. They don't have any purse strings usually. There are some communities that do. So, you got to follow the money a little bit on that discussion and listen to the right person. But there's always a sidewalk guy, right? Like, there's no sidewalks. He's going to be the sidewalk guy. There's, so even watching, I always tell people, like, watch a couple council meetings or meetings where, there was hot, discussions for a development, see the interaction, because a lot of them are recorded these days and posted on the internet. So, look at who your personality is, meet with them before you get in the room, right? So that they know who you are, they know what you want to do. I mean, a lot of times will meet with our council people at least once a year, if not once a quarter.
Well, I mean, that again, a lot of people think it is greasing the wheels, but it's like, no, you're not. This isn't bribery. This is just building
Mhm.
relationships, which is what real estate is always all about. It's like, have you spent the time to get to know someone and get to know what this town wants, as we're saying, and what they're already telling you are going to be the objections, because then you can work towards countering the objections while you're starting the project. It's probably what you do a lot for the development for fee. It's like, well, they've already told you what they don't want. So why are you trying to do exactly what they don't want? Like, let's pivot the project a little to make it a win-win where maybe we're closer to an agreement and you're not losing a boatload of money because they want, substantially less availability.
100%. 100%. It's sales, right? Sales 101. You have to sell that project to the council, and you got to know what do they want, what do you want, and give and take, and hopefully in the end, everybody wins.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. Before we wrap up, tell us about those things that you have. You have the Academy now. Is the Academy the newer one, right?
Yeah. So I just launched the Academy in December, actually in January, but we did a beta in December. So I launched the Academy. It's a 6-month program, and I've really poured a lot of what I do for my clients into it.
Yeah.
And I'm really excited about it. Like I said, we only have so many invites that go out a month, and the transformation is great. And I love it because it's actually people doing projects and getting in the game and or looking for those projects. And we're working on offers and how to control the contingencies on them and due diligence. Yeah. And so I love that. It's been great. It's been so great.
And don't you find that the people who make the buy-in, they connect with each other, and then you're like, oh, wow, this is not only interesting for you to see all these people who are doing random deals across the country, but now they're becoming friends, and they live close to each other. Now they have like we were saying before, that's a more vetted opportunity to partner because you both have the same buy-in, similar mindset, growth mindset. You're just hedging your bets towards a better potential, or at least just cool. Like we're going to go see each other's projects.
Yeah. And that's actually, I've done that a couple times, is to say, hey, I'm going to be driving through this area. I'm going to run by. Do you want to meet up? And when you say like them collaborating too, I mean, that's kind of been a great part, because when I give advice, a lot of times people are like, I don't have a project to discuss today, Katie, but I just want to be on the call and listen. It's like, that's what, again, being in the room is. And there are some times there was one call, a lady she wasn't ready for the Academy, but so we gave her another resource, the workshop. And she was like, I have this property. I just need somebody, that I can partner with that can do the construction. Well, we have a construction guy in our Academy. And I'm like, hey, do you know this area? And he's like, yeah, it's up and coming. Knew it, So, connect them, and then you have another project going. So, yeah. And they're all based off of like, we're doing the projections and the tools and stuff like that together in the same way. So that's even helps with like analyzing the numbers. Because sometimes when you look at how other people analyze numbers, it takes a second to understand their process. Right. Yeah. So.
Yeah. And one thing I found with analyzing numbers, newer people are really, really baked into the numbers. And I my whole life, I live on spreadsheets. But when it comes to real estate, I'm like, look at the place. I'm like, yeah, it looks good. You know what I mean? Like, because we've been in it so long and walked so many houses, like the spreadsheet's really for like the larger scale deals, but the smaller scale deals, it's like almost a sniff test for me. And that goes back to the reps that we were talking about. You want to get to the time where you can have an educated sniff and just be like, yeah, this is good. I'll pay that. That just feels better, but you can only get that from experience. You can't fake it.
No, you can't. And so I call that, like, I'm trying to train on those reps. I like the sniff test. I call it the back of the napkin spreadsheet. Yeah. So like I have my development analysis for like cost per square foot and estimates. And then I have the back of the napkin. It's like, this is what I do naturally. Like, boom, boom, boom. Yep. Okay. Let's look at it. Right. Like, let's go to the next step. But I would say the Academy has helped me kind of like, be like, wow, I have to like explain that stuff.
Yeah, right. They can't read the back of the napkin. It looks just like a Picasso picture. What is that? No, that's a whole budget. I don't understand why you can't see it. What's wrong with you?
Yeah. Well, and I did there's a couple of times when we do calls, because we do like a strategic deep dive with our students too. And one of them was like, I just have a question. And I said, can I do a think out loud session on this? And he's like, okay. And it was, hey, I buy in a house. I want to do an ADU. I got some buddies that want to come in. How do I structure this? And so I just recorded myself literally back of the napkin. And then I had my tech team make it pretty, because nobody wanted to see that scratch. Yeah. But it was cool to be like, wow, this is actually like how you think through it.
Yeah.
But you don't ever slow down to really outline the steps.
Yeah. Well, now you are. That's why you got the class, the academy's there to make your steps go slower so other people can get inside your brain. Awesome. Is the best place for people to get in touch with you and find out about all that stuff at katiekim.com?
Yes, sir. That's it.
All right. Well, it's been a pleasure. And they can find you on Instagram as the Katie Kim, right?
Yeah. When you have a name like Katie Kim, it gets taken pretty
Someone
quickly.
stole it. Yeah.
So yeah. And we do, like on our YouTube channel, we have a money math playlist and a knowledge nugget. So we talk about the definitions. So you start to learn the lingo as well as the math. And the math really started for my kids. They're like, Mom, I'm never going to need this equation in my life. I'm like, no, that one, no, this one, yes.
Yeah, right.
All the time.
No Pythagorean theorem, but here, ROI. Let's remember this one.
Exactly.
Awesome. Well, it's been an absolute pleasure. Really appreciate it. I was excited about this, and you definitely did not disappoint. I'm sure the audience got a ton of value out of this, so appreciate your time.
Awesome. Thank you. And thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. That was Katie Kim. You can find her at, this is easy, katiekim.com. You can find the academy there. I'm Jonathan Green. We'll see you next episode. Thanks for sticking around to the end so you can get a preview of who's coming up on the next episode of Zen and the Art of Real Estate Investing. In episode 251, my guest is Mark Curry. He's the co-founder of SMK Capital Management, and listen to what Mark's done throughout his career: sourcing, underwriting, acquiring, raising capital, rehabilitating, managing, and selling both residential and commercial investments throughout multiple markets in the U.S. So you're going to get it all. And it's a fun episode. Can't wait for you to hear it. We'll see you then.